Rob had opened Michelle's laptop the night before, after solidifying the idea in his head that it was the right thing to do. He had felt at first like he was prying into her personal belongings and wondered if Sue, or Michelle, from beyond, would mind. Then he had decided that it was just her laptop, not her diary or anything. At first he had no idea how to use it, but he learned fast. It was a white Macintosh. He had pushed the power button to turn it on. It had made a loud, musical sound as it booted up. He had been afraid that Sue had heard it. Then he figured she was out cold by then. He clicked on a few icons before finding the one that opened the internet. It was called Safari. Its icon was a compass. How that indicated that was for the web, he didn't know. He had just been glad the net's window had popped up. It had said that there was no connection. He hadn't known what to do about that at first. After much searching, he had found the airport to click on at the top of the screen to get a wireless connection. A list of networks had popped up. Most of them had pictures of padlocks next to them. That was user-friendly enough for Rob to know that those were no good to him. The one that was called Coffee Junction 23 had no padlock next to it. He had clicked on it, and Google popped up as the home page. That must have been how Michelle used the internet too. Neither she nor Sue had a connection that he knew of. That sneaky bitch had piggybacked onto the local coffee shop's connection for customers for free. He had smiled at that. He had begun his search on Google, and that had led him to find what he was looking for. They pulled into the parking lot for the Pasadena Humane Society. "What?" Sue exclaimed. "Rob." She looked at him with disdain. "No, absolutely not." "We can at least look around," he suggested. "No, I don't want an animal, and it'll just be depressing in there." "It won't be too bad. I picked this place because it's one of the less savory ones, at least according to their website. I actually had to look hard for a place that was a kill facility. Most of them are no-kill out here. I was happy to find that out. Animals don't just go to the pound and then get euthanized in 7 days like I thought. They go from the pound and to these places. This place has a percentage of about 3% of their animals having to be put down, probably because they are not adoptable for whatever reason, like they're too sick or something." "Well, if I did want to look around, which I don't, I would want to look at one of the more savory facilities, as you put it. Why would you deliberately pick a depressing one?" "The reason I say this place is less savory is because it is the closest kill facility, and the animals in the pictures look miserable. Granted, they are photographed right after they're brought in. There's a place in Glendale, but it is a no-kill place, and the animals are also happy there in the pictures. The cats look content in the cattery, and the dogs all have smiles on their faces in the pictures. It would be like taking someone else's animal that is already a pet in a way. The animals here are the most desperate that I could find, and I was happy to find out they are not that desperate after all." Sue just let out a loud sigh through her nose. "Please, Sue. Your place allows animals. That old bitch across the hall has one of those little yappy dogs. I'll pay for the deposit. I think it'd be really good for you. You just said the other night how empty your place feels even with me there, and you're right. I feel it too. There is a large gap, and we are in the position to save a little life here. I don't want some animal crapping all over the house or needing attention that I don't really feel up to giving right now. I'm just going back to work. You told me how Max would suffer waiting to pee. I know you didn't have a choice about that, but I do. I don't want to go through it." "I understand, but I've already thought about that. I think we should get a kitten, actually. It's fun to start from the beginning of their life with them. Yeah, until they die on you after you get totally attached. Really, Rob, what the hell is going through your head? This is so insensitive. I dare say you're being stupid. You can't live your life waiting for everything around you to die, and you know that. Their lifespans aren't that short. You can expect at least a good decade from a healthy cat, and maybe closer to 20 years if you're really lucky. I know you're sensitive right now, but I think you can handle having something to bond with right now that really needs you, and you can handle it and Michelle's death 10 years from now. Well, of course, but I'm just insisting you try. Let's leave it up to the fates. If you don't find one, then you don't get one. If you really feel bad for them in there, though, you most likely will find one. You had a cat when you were a kid?" She smiled. "Yeah, I loved that little guy. He was a hellion, but he was mine. He hated my parents, too, right along with me. See, and he died eventually, but you wouldn't give your time with him back just because you knew it was going to end someday, would you?" "Oh, stop asking me stupid, obvious questions. Let's go inside already." "Yay! I really think it's a good idea." "Just shut up before I change my mind." She opened her car door. On their way into the building, they began discussing what it would actually be like to go through with it. Rob was talking fast with excitement like a little kid. "We can get a litter box and food and bowls at the grocery store on the way home. I'll run right in and right out. I know the pet section really well. This place gives you a carrier to take the cat home in and everything." Sue just looked mildly annoyed, but like she was also enjoying his enthusiasm just a little, although she did not look like she wanted to admit it. Rob was practically jumping up and down as they walked in. "We'll pick one that has already been screened so you'll know it's healthy, and I'll help take care of it too. I know you're a clean freak now, so we can get a girl so it won't want to pee on everything." "All right already. I'm humoring you. Just take it down a notch, please," she said as they opened the door to the front office. There were two ladies behind the desk. They were both middle-aged. One was on the phone. The other asked if she could help them. They said they wanted to look at the cats, especially the kittens. They were directed to go out the side door and past the dog kennels and make a left, and they would be at the new arrivals ward. They followed the instructions, and they heard a rooster crow along the way. "They have those here?" Sue asked him. "I guess so," he shrugged. "I didn't search for roosters." "That's where I definitely would have drawn the line," she said dryly. Rob frowned at all the dogs that sat in their concrete outdoor kennels. Some of them were so beautiful. How could they not have homes? They looked so sad. He wondered what it was like for them in the wintertime in the outdoors. They had slight shelters, but they were still wet from being hosed down, and that couldn't be fun when it got cold. He tried to hide his own melancholy expression so that Sue would not see it and call him a hypocrite for not adopting his own pet. He wasn't ready, though. It felt too soon, like he would be replacing Max. Plus, life in the city was hard with a dog and no yard. Just in case she was thinking any of that right along with him, he thought he would beat her to the punch and maybe distract her a bit. He said jokingly to her, "Don't think of it as replacing Michelle. Just think of it as getting a new buddy." "Mm-hmm," she said sarcastically. "I'm so worried that all my memories of Michelle will just fly away when I stare into some sad kitten's eyes. Who needs you, Michelle? I'm getting a new pussy now." "You've been using that word a lot lately." That made her laugh. "Yeah, well, us chicks are taking the word back." They entered the new arrivals ward. It smelled more like wet dog than the kennel area. There were cages lining all four walls, and it was nice to see how many of the cages were still empty. Sue sized up the room. "Okay, I've got a rule. I know it's stupid, but I don't want to take a kitten from a cage if there are only two of them. I would hate to be the one to be responsible for the other one being left alone. I know it's stupid and someone's got to take them, but it's not going to be me. That should help narrow it down. I'll take one if it's by itself or if it's part of a bigger litter." "I get that," Rob agreed. They went around the perimeter, quietly peeking in the cages. Most of the kittens were asleep. How the hell were you supposed to know which one to bond with if they were all passed out, Rob wondered. What if the one you were meant to be with was just another random fuzzball blending in with all the others? Then he thought that if you were meant to be with one, you simply would be with that one. It was not up to him, or even to Sue necessarily. "I can't choose," Sue whispered. "None of them are really jumping out at me. And look at this." She pointed to the cards that were attached to each cage. Most of the cards read that the kittens were too young to be adopted yet, but you could be put on a waiting list until after they had been inspected and fixed. "A lottery for cats?" she asked with alarmed irritation. "You just get whichever one is closest to the top of the list? This is bullshit." "Can I help you?" A young, stocky, spiky-haired woman came out from a door in the back of the room. Sue looked like she was just ready to walk out. "Yeah," Rob said quickly. "We wanted to adopt a kitten, but we were hoping to maybe pick one out today." "Oh," the woman replied. "I don't know why they sent you over here then. These are the new arrivals. You want to go to the adoptable ward. It's on the other side of the kennels." "Well, then why did they send us here?" Sue asked, obviously annoyed. "Well," the woman said right back, "because this is where most of the kittens are. Most of the cats over there are older, but there are a few young ones. You can't adopt them until we've screened them and had them fixed, which means they have to be at least 2 months old." "You fix them that young?" Rob asked. "Yes," the woman replied. "We wait until they are at least 2 pounds." "Isn't that a little early? Does it stunt their growth or anything?" he asked. "We haven't had any complaints, and that's the policy." Sue sighed and tried to sound polite, despite her frustration with the entire situation. "Well, we'll look over there then. Thank you for your help." They left the new arrivals ward. "Let's just go, please," Sue asked him. "This is already a pain in the ass, and frankly, it's a little disheartening. I don't need that right now. Can we just peek in? Look how many cats we crossed off the list of possibilities, just by process of elimination." She sighed and gestured with her hand out for him to lead the way. He did. He tried not to look at the dogs again as he passed by. To distract the both of them again, he asked her about the woman. "Do you think she was a lesbo?" "Are you kidding?" Sue scoffed. "She damn near makes me look like a hetero." "Hey, I couldn't tell about you." Rob. She tisk-tisked. "You're so naive." He shrugged in acceptance. The adoptable ward was much nicer. It smelled clean. There was a giant glass room that was a cattery, where all the older cats that were able to be sociable with each other could lounge around and feed or play or whatever they wanted to do. They were not in need of adoption. That would be where they lived the rest of their lives. They looked content. Why wouldn't they be? "That's nicer than my living room," Sue said. She had a pretty sizable one, too, especially for L.A., since her building was old. They didn't build them like that anymore. Rob agreed at how great they had it. Past the glassed-in cattery was another room that was similar to the new arrivals' ward. Again, there were cages lining all four walls, so you could take them all in at one glance around. The cards attached to the cages said that most of the cats were ready to be adopted immediately. Only a few were on hold, waiting for results, or hopefully waiting to be picked up by someone who would give them a loving home. Some of the cats would cry out for attention when they approached the cage, but there was a sign at the main entrance that said not to touch them to avoid spreading disease. Most of them started at being a year and a half old and up. Some of them were over 10 years old. Rob wondered how likely it was that the older ones would be adopted. Maybe they weren't sociable enough to stretch out in the cattery. He thought it was a shame. The full-grown cats were so big for the small cages. At least they were off the streets and were regularly fed, he thought. Some of them didn't look too happy about their predicament, though. There were only two that closely met Sue's specifications. There was a fluffy Maine Coon that was 2 months old, but he was a boy, and he was napping with his feet up. He was adorable. Sue gave him a long look and then pouted at how cute he was. Maybe she would budge on the gender. Just then a counselor came in and announced who she was, and said that she was off soon, so she was doing a last check to see if she could be of any service. She was a young blonde woman with dreadlocks and tattoos. "We wanted to hopefully get a kitten today," Rob said to her. "Well, there are only 2 little ones in here. Did you try the new arrivals ward?" she asked him. "Yes, but we wanted to get one today," he restated. "I'm sorry," she responded. "You already said that. It's late in the day and I'm a little frazzled." She shook her hands up by her face to indicate how frazzled she was. Her energy was a tad manic. "Did you see the other one?" "Not yet," he said. The counselor walked Sue and Rob over to the opposite corner of the room. There was a 2-month-old, spayed, black and gray tabby in there that was ready to be adopted that day. Sue knelt down to get a good look. "Hi, little girl," she said softly. The kitten squeaked at her. Sue and Rob both awed at the same time. "Let me open the cage for you," the counselor offered. She pulled back the latch and let the door swing open. "You can tell she's a tabby from the big black M on her forehead between her ears there. She's a beauty." Sue reached in to pet her, and the kitten leaned firmly into her hand. "Rob, look at this," she said to him. He kneeled down and went to pet her too. The kitten pulled mildly away. Sue reached back in, and the kitten turned over on her back, exposing her freshly stitched belly from the spaying. The kitten began kneading the air with her paws. Sue called it making biscuits, like she was kneading invisible dough. The counselor went to grab the kitten's paper collar to get her identification number. The kitten mildly pulled away from her as well. Rob was a bit glad at that. He felt less slighted. The counselor grabbed the collar anyway and got the number. She was definitely already Sue's cat. She had chosen Sue. Sue was already hers, too. It was obvious. "Well, what do you think?" the counselor asked. "What do you need from me so I can take her home right now?" Sue asked while still petting her. Sue and Rob went into the counselor's office and temporarily left the kitten in the cage to begin the adoption process. The counselor called the owner of Sue's apartment building to confirm that she was allowed to have a pet there. The counselor had been nice enough to call information to get the renting management's number, since Sue didn't know it. Her building was still in a transition period, waiting to get a new superintendent. She had his number memorized, but that wouldn't do her much good anymore. He'd been a nice enough man, even if he had been a bit incompetent, but she had already come to terms with his death long before Michelle's. She was sorry for him. He had just been an innocent bystander. The owner, who Sue didn't even know, said that the building allowed pets, but that her next month's rent would have to be charged an additional $400 deposit. The counselor relayed that to her while covering up the phone's mouthpiece. Sue said that was fine. Rob offered to pay it again, but Sue shook her head and scrunched her face and waved at him to just be quiet. Then they had to go to the front desk, so Sue could fill out all her information and sign a contract specifying that the Pasadena Humane Society was giving over possession and control of the animal as long as the terms of the contract were upheld.